Welcome to the Brown Bag Business Chat. I'm your host, Heather Steele, and I have with me today Adam Fowl, our content writer. We're going to be talking about content. So why do you need content? How often do you need content? What is content? What kind of content can you use in your marketing? Everything related around content. So Adam, I'll let you kind of take the lead here and talk a little bit about why content's important. So why do we always harp on this? Why is it something that we're stressing to our clients and to all the business owners? What makes it so important?
Well, I mean, it's not just us. It's really everybody. Anytime you go on social media and get in the marketing space, you see people talking about this, and people make videos about it, and they do webinars on just how to write content and how to make content, the different types of content. It feels really buzzwordy, but it's something that people want. People go online to find things. They go online to find either products to buy or content to consume. And so
I feel like there's an earthquake. Are you okay?
I'm right next to an airport, so it could be a plane flying past, but it's gone by now.
There was a lot of motion there for a minute.
Oh, okay, yeah. So anyway, the plane might have been shaking the building.
I think you were shaking the computer, but yeah.
That's possible. Content's really important, because when people come to your website, they want to read certain things. They're looking for information. And so if you have very little on your website, they're going to move to someone else's. And the same thing applies for video. It's what people come onto the internet looking for. If you don't have the information that they want, they're going to move on to someone else. And the problem is that there's so many people out there creating content all the time. There's so many different people that you're competing with that you have to have stuff that's really, really good. So you can write an article on, let's say, dog breeding. And if there's hundreds and hundreds of other dog breeders out there, and many of them are also writing articles on the same topic. So you have to think about, okay, I'm not just going to write this and get something quick out there. I need to write an article that's really, really good. It's got a lot of research in it that has that's going to blow the competition out of the water. I think that's one thing that we see a lot with content, is that there's too much of it out there. Does that make sense?
I think you made a really great point there. You said something about, you can't just write it to get it out there. And that's something that, especially with like the website content, the main pages of a website. So when we're working with a client, we're building their new site and we're collecting their content. I think a lot of times it's like, let me just check this off of my list really quickly and put down some junk and get it out there because I want to get it off of my plate, not have to worry about it anymore. But what people are missing is the point that the content you write is actually very important. It's there to serve a purpose. It's there to help move people further down your sales funnel. It's there to educate them about your products. It's there to do a job. And if you're just kind of half-assing it, then it's not going to do a very good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to back up a little bit, I think, so what content is something that is some sort of information, whether it be on video, written down. Those are the two primary things, but it can also be downloadables. So it can be like ebooks, white papers, things like that. And it's information that is surrounding your business that is somehow going to help a customer. So that's what content marketing is. When we talk about content marketing, the difference between content marketing and traditional forms of marketing is that content marketing is meant to draw people in. It's got information that you think, or we think, or someone thinks that your customers want. And so the point of it is to help them, really, it's a hard thing to wrap your mind around when you're so focused on your business. You're focused on doing what you do best, which may not be writing, which may be something completely different, and probably is. And so it's easy, like you said, to say, okay, I'm just going to write something really quick, or I'll have someone else write it who knows very little about my business or what I do.
Mhm.
I'll have something quick that I can get out there. And really what people are looking for is they want, when they're looking for an article and they're searching for, let's say it's dog grooming, and they want to know the best techniques for grooming their dog at home. They don't want some half-assed article that's like, hey, this is one thing you might do, but you should really come in here because we're going to do it better for you. What they need is like actual useful information. And if you can provide that, then you get in their head and suddenly you become the person that they go to. They're saying, okay, that article was really helpful, had great information, I'll go back there. And eventually, like you said, that maybe generates a lead. They start saying, okay, now I have some money to spend. I got a dog grooming a budget for this month because I got some extra money after Christmas. Maybe I'll go spend it over here with this guy because he seems to know what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's becoming that subject matter expert, being the one that has the answers and that's willing to lead people down the path to success. Whether it's something as simple as dog grooming to a very complex, B2B environment where you're giving your expertise, you're giving something away of value through your content, whether it be a video, white paper, ebook, blog post, whatever that medium may be, you're giving something away that's going to help people in their day-to-day lives. I think there's a really good example going around on Facebook right now. There's a video of a doctor, I think he's in California. He's a pediatrician, and he's just showing how he quiets babies. He's having babies on the scale and giving them shots and doing things that make them unhappy all day. And so he's become this expert at how to soothe them and quiet them down. And so he simply shows several babies that are crying and unhappy and how he does this special hold to make them feel good and safe and happy. And that to me is like an amazing example of content marketing. It's not necessarily going to set him apart in a way that people are going to say, oh, I need to stop what I'm doing right now and take my baby to the doctor. But people are going to remember that. And he's creating an emotional connection with them. He's giving parents something that they can use in their daily life to make themselves more sane and help them not feel like they're failing at having this little tiny person in their life. And it creates that trust and connection. And I can guarantee that new parents that see that are going to want to go to him over any other pediatrician because they're going to feel like he gets it. He's taught them something. They're going to come out of an appointment with him with more than just a baby that's been vaccinated. They're going to feel like they're learning how to be parents from him.
And one thing you said earlier that kind of caught my attention is it's really counterintuitive, I think, to give away something of value for free. We like to think that, okay, I've got this business. I've got one or two or maybe three things that I do really well. I want to sell that and make money off it. I can't just give it away. And so it's like, why would I give away this great information? Why would I pass that on to someone? And I think that the answer to that is that you're not passing all of it on. You're not giving them your entire expertise. You're not, and there's certain things that really only you can do. That they're going to have to come to you for one thing or another if you have your business set up right. But what you're giving away are some really valuable tips that they can use in the moment, and something that's going to put, the most important thing is what marketing has always been about, what advertising has always been about, getting in their headspace and having them think of you rather than someone else when they think of whatever it is that you do, because they've seen your video or because they've read your article or because they've got your ebook, sitting on their computer and they reference it once a week. Whatever the reason may be, if you have something that's really, really high quality, you're gonna take up that space in their head and push out the competitors, and that's really where your brand matters. It doesn't matter how, where you are on the outside, or it matters where you are in the minds of the consumer.
Right. And I think a big mistake that we see a lot of people make, and I know we've dealt with this with some of our own clients, is that you kind of forget what it's like to be a consumer when you're the person selling something. And so a lot of times clients or people who are trying to sell something through their website or through some kind of online marketing strategy, they feel like people are always in buying mode. Happy birthday.
I hit the randomize button.
It's like people are always in buying mode when that's not true. We're not always ready to make that purchase. And so by providing your content, by putting something out there that's worth value or that's going to entertain someone or leave someone with a good feeling, and associating your brand with that, you're getting in their head so that when it is time for them to make a buying decision, hopefully you're the brand that they choose to go with. And that's really what it's all about, is creating brand awareness, becoming front of mind. And then whenever they are ready to make that purchasing decision, you're there, you're already in front of them, and you've already established this kind of level of trust almost, because people are going to feel like they know your brand through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, if you're going to, because I think most business owners don't necessarily have the time or the patience or even necessarily the ability to create this kind of content on their own. That's why there are so many specialists who do it. But I think it's really important that if you have someone creating content for you, if you have someone making videos for you or making or writing for you, that you do not only do a good job vetting them and make sure they know, you know, the industry that you're in, and they've got maybe some experience writing about that industry, but also that they're willing to work closely with you and that you can give them, they're willing to listen to you, and that you have the time, maybe not to make the content obviously, but to work with them and tell them, okay, here's really where what's important here. Here's what people need to know. Here's what people might not know. Because it can be easy to pass this off and say, oh, that's just a job that, you know, that's one of those things I pay for. That's part of my expense of doing business. And then they just take care of it. You're not going to come up with that incredible content that people love, that people need, that's better than the competition. And that's the other thing to think about, is that when you're competing within, there's a jet taking off right
now.
It's very loud.
Yeah.
When you're competing as a small business, you know, a brick and mortar business in a small area, you might have, you know, 3, 4, 5 competitors in your local area, and that's all you have to worry about. When you're competing on the internet with blog posts or with videos or anything, you're literally competing with the entire world, because nobody's content is higher or lower favored than yours, except if it's been out longer. So you have to keep that in mind as well, that, you know, if you can't spend the time working with whoever is creating your content for you to really make it something that stands out, then you might want to reconsider that decision, or maybe, you know, bring it down a notch and say, okay, I'm only going to meet with this person or put out some content at you know, not every week like I planned on. Maybe I'm going to do it monthly or even quarterly, but that way I can spend the time necessary to make sure that content is really good.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. I think that it's really easy to confuse, you know, the quantity over quality, and which is more important, because, you know, we hear that content is so important, you've got to be generating it, that sometimes it's tempting just to put out something. Let's just get something out the door, when really saving that back and waiting until it's a quality post or a quality piece of content is so much better. You still want to have some kind of schedule so that it's predictable and people kind of know when they can expect more content to come out from you, but why even bother sharing something that's not worthwhile, that's not quality, that's just going to kind of dilute your brand and make you look a little bit foolish?
Yeah, and that's the danger, is that you put something out that's you know, half-baked, and it ends up making you look worse than if you put nothing out at all. I think you have to strike a balance, just like anything. You have to strike a balance between, okay, I can't, you know, put out one article a year and spend an entire year writing this thing. That's no good. But I also can't be putting out mediocre stuff constantly. I can't be, let's say that we've decided, you know, it's like we're a manufacturing company and we're going to do white papers. That's the kind of content that we think our customers are interested in. And so, you know, a white paper a month might not be doable. And if you're putting out these low quality white papers, it doesn't matter. Not only does it not matter, but there's the danger that you become a joke within your space. And that's the last thing that you want to do. So instead, maybe pushing that out to every 2 months or 3 months or whatever gives you the time, just making sure that something's coming out on a regular basis so people know, okay, I'm going to get one every 3 months. I know it comes out every 3 months, and sticking to that schedule, but not doing it so slowly that you know, you get nothing out there and your efforts are kind of wasted.
Right. Yeah, and I think you kind of laid a little nugget there in what you said, that you know, what you think your audience is going to want. And we talk a lot about audience and branding and how important that is, but really even beyond like putting out the content that you think people want, it's really important to sit down and evaluate who your audience is and what their needs are, and build your content from that. Don't just talk about what you want to talk about. Think about the questions you get asked all the time. What are the things that people are calling in and asking you regularly or emailing you about, or what are you constantly telling clients over and over and over? And use those things to build your content. It makes it much easier, and it's going to make it more effective because you're speaking directly to people. You're answering a common question. You're answering something that people are asking you all the time. And it's a great way to create a connection because you already know that that's a need. People need that information. What are some other ways, Adam, that you can think of to be able to create content that's really effective and speaks well to your target audience?
Well, I mean, like you said, you know, the questions that people are asking you kind of on a regular basis, but you can also go out there and just ask your customers, what kind of stuff do you want that would be helpful? You can send out a survey, and another really great resource is social media. You know, if you're on social media, it's so easy to set up a survey, or even just ask a question. Just go on your Facebook page or make a tweet that says, what kind of information do you guys want? And the people who are following you might give you a couple tips. So, I mean, that's one resource that I think can be easily overlooked. It's so easy to look at social media as we have to put stuff out. You know, we have to put stuff out. This is something where we spread our, you know, our knowledge and our information, and we share things with people. But at the same time, it can be really good for bringing information into you. What do you guys want? What is interesting to you? What is valuable to you? What can we create for you to help you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great point. In fact, today when we were working on our WordPress dictionary, I just sent out, you know, on Facebook and in a couple of Slack channels, hey, what are some of the terms that you struggled with when you first started using WordPress? Mm-hmm. And got a ton of responses back. People telling me all the, you know, random abbreviations and acronyms that we use that are so familiar to our vernacular that nobody really knows what it means until you're ingrained. And so it's going to be a great piece of content where we can share this for people that are new to WordPress, and that's a target audience for us. And so it's it worked out nicely, and I think it's something that can apply to really any industry. You can easily ask people who are your customers already or your connections, you know, what kind of things do you want to know?
Yeah, and that's simple, it's easy, it's fast, and it costs you almost nothing. You know, you ask a question, and you sit back, and you know, here come your answers.
Yeah.
Another thing I was thinking of, especially in terms of content for small businesses, is I think it can be really easy to be scared of creating any sort of content. To be scared of writing something because, you know, I didn't do great in English class when I was in school, or to be scared of making video because, like, we don't have the budget to, you know, hire a videographer or something like that. And I think that that those fears are, to some extent, they are valid, but I think that especially for video, the landscape is different today. People don't expect, we're not in the world of the 70s and 80s and even the 90s where everything was polished. Every video that you ever saw was perfect because it was all made for television. You know, it was all made by people who did this for a living, and we didn't have much internet in those days. Mm-hmm. And now, with the advent of the internet, there are videos that are not necessarily low quality, but they're not these professional polished pieces. They're more real, and people like that kind of content. And I think it can be easy for you to say, oh, you know, as an individual, I take these videos when I go on vacation or whatever and share them on my Facebook page. And that's fine because I'm an individual. But now that I'm a business owner as my business, I can't do that. Everything has to be polished and clean and perfect. And I think that that's not necessarily the case, that people don't expect that out of businesses. They expect some polished stuff, but I think they also are fine with content that is that even just shot on a cell phone, because we have, and especially with things like with streaming services like Periscope and Blab coming up, people are getting used to this idea of not having everything picture perfect, not having every move choreographed out, not having every line of dialogue written beforehand, and they're okay with businesses being real and in the moment. And so I think that that's, especially with video, that's something to that if you're afraid of, you should look twice at it, because it's not necessarily the case like it was before.
Right. And even with blogging and writing articles, submitting something to Medium or LinkedIn Pulse or any of those outlets for content, it's kind of the same way. Unless your job is as an editor and you're helping people with their grammar and spelling and punctuation, it's okay to write the way that you talk. I'm not saying it would hurt to run it by someone else or use spell check, but there's really much less of a need to have that, everything perfect. In fact, I think it kind of makes it worse. Nobody really wants to read a blog post that's written like a midterm or that's written like an essay. It's not very fun. We like to read things that sound the way that we speak. And I think that's something that really holds a lot of people back, because like you said, they feel like they're not professional writers. They feel like they can't do it. If you can spell, if you can remember which version of to use, and you can place a comma, you can probably put together a really good blog post by just sharing your knowledge and being yourself. Don't try to sound stuffy or like you're writing this to turn it in. Just almost, it might even be an easier process for people if they would literally just speak, record yourself on the phone or the computer and then type that post out from what you've said verbally.
And there are even pieces of software that you can get that will, that as you speak, it'll type for you.
Oh, yeah, you can do it on your phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that the problem is that most people have gone through school for a long period of time, and in school we're taught a very narrow way of writing, where it's this particular genre of writing, and when we get out, we try to use that everywhere. And the fact is that on the internet, where all this content is going out, very little of that genre is being used by your customers. What they're used to is a casual tone, like you were talking about, a laid back conversational mode of writing that you're just not going to see in a paper, even in a newspaper, let alone a scientific article. But like you said, you're not writing a scientific article. You're not writing a newspaper post. It doesn't have to be clean and practiced and polished. And like you said, I think that it can really drive people away if it's so formal that people read it and they feel like they're in school again. I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing.
Right. Yeah, I know personally, if I see an article that has, short paragraphs, a few lines each, headings placed liberally, nice bullets and numbered lists, and that's going to be something that I want to read so much more than big, bulky blocks of text. Something that's kind of your typical essay type format where it's long and lengthy and wordy, and you don't have to have 500 words to be able to turn it in. You can have less, and people will actually appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of starting to run out of time here, so I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what we want the content to do, because we mentioned in the beginning of our talk that content should have a job to do. So obviously we want to use content to introduce your brand and your business to people, to create a connection. But most pieces of content, especially on your website, your core, what we call your static content, your pages that tell people what you do or what you sell, and then a majority of your blog posts are going to have a purpose, a call to action is what we call it. So deciding what you actually want that piece of content to do. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that and some different types of calls to action?
Yeah, I mean, you like it depends on what you're writing about, but you might want someone, so you might want this piece of content to push people deeper into your website. You know, you don't want them to, this is not something that's going to convince them to buy something from you. That wasn't the point of it. It was to help them learn more, maybe. But you may want to push them into deeper into your website to learn more about the other types of content that's related, and eventually maybe the services. So you might have a button at the end, or even as simple as a link that just says, click here to learn more about this topic, or click here to see more about, you know, whatever this topic is. Now you might want other calls to action that are pushing someone directly towards a sale. You know, maybe that you have written about a particular product that you sell on your website. If you sell watches on your website, and you know you've written this long article about the different types of watches and the best ones, maybe you want to push them. You want to say, hey, click here to see the watches we've been talking about. You might also want to just move someone to contact you directly. You know, not every website or not every small business is selling something online. So the only way that you might actually be able to, you know, generate that lead is by talking to someone over the phone, especially if you have some of these higher end services where it's, you know, you're not trying to collect a form. You want to talk to this person, and they want to talk to you before they, you know, spend that kind of money. So I think having something that says, you know, click here to you know, or call us now, or click here to call us now. I like click here because I feel like it's old school, but it works really well. But you know, call us now, or you know, get in contact with you know, your representative or something like that. You can also push people towards forms. You know, if your goal is to just pull emails off of that for your email list, you might say, if you like this blog post, you know, click here and give us your, you know, put your email in to sign up for our blog and get blog reminders. Do you have any others that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely using contact forms on the website to make it really easy for people to contact you, and giving them a specific reason. So not necessarily just put your email here and we'll send you every blog post. That doesn't necessarily sound like a benefit to me. But if you're, you know, the dog groomer, and I say, you know, sign up here and get, you know, a grooming tip every week, or get, you know, discounts and tips in your inbox, or something that tells them exactly what you're going to give, and hopefully has a little bit of value wrapped into that, I think is much more compelling. And then again, if you're just pushing people to contact you, maybe you're giving them a specific reason. Contact us for a quote. Contact us to learn more about X, whatever that is. Just being as specific as possible, so that you're really leaving no doubt in the person's head as to what they should do next. You know, as human beings, we kind of like having a path laid out in front of us. So the more you can do that with your content to really create, this is the next action. If you read this, it was because you had X problem, and to get to the solution, you need to follow this trail.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're just about out of time.
Awesome. Any last little bits of advice, or are you okay?
Yeah. There's might be attacked very soon by some wasps, but
oh no. Okay. Well,
no, just don't be afraid. You know, don't be afraid to write. Don't be afraid to make something. Don't be afraid to try it. Because if you let this fear that I'm gonna make something that's bad and it's gonna make my business look bad get a hold of you, then you never make anything, and you're stuck stuck in your brick and mortar. You're not out there in the digital world making an impact.
Yeah. And I would also add, if you do feel stuck, like you just can't kind of get over this hurdle, we do have a template for creating content, of course. So we will link that below the video, so you can download that template and basically just fill in the blanks to create some really good, compelling content that has strong calls to action, and it'll just walk you through that process of creating those first few pieces. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Brown Bag Business Chat, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.